All right, what's up, everybody? Good afternoon. It's Monday and time for Master Motivation. My name is Jason Flame, joined by our guest today, Mr. Ray Rosas. How
Hey
are you,
everyone,
Ray?
I'm doing great. I'm here.
He's
I'm
at
here at Knott's Berry Farm.
Yeah. So time with
I
the family, and thanks for taking a little time out for us and just kind of joining me on the show. And we're going to kind of dive right in and just talk about all kinds of different topics and have fun with this. But for those of you that are tuning in, maybe for the first time, never seen the Master Motivation Show, this podcast, if you will, was created in an effort to bring more positivity to social media. In the end of 2020, I was kind of scrolling through Facebook and I'd see like just a lot of stuff that wasn't real exciting or real uplifting, right? So I said,
very
well,
negative.
what could I do? What could I do to make a difference, right? You guys can hear that roller coaster in the background. What could I do to make a difference? And I said, I know a lot of people that have some really great stories and are highly motivating and inspiring. So I put together a list of people, and Ray, you came up on the list for sure. The first time that I met you actually was at MPW. I remember you coming into the locker room, and I'm like, all right, who's this guy? I mean, I heard of you, but like, who's this guy? What's he about? And at the time, there was kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like just some drama going on at MPW. It was just, there were some things going on that I don't know. We were kind of struggling, I guess, just with morale. We had a
Mhm.
trainer that was not exactly. He just didn't fit the mold of what MPW is and what it has become. And so I got to know you a little bit, although I had heard about you, just from the other shows and stuff. And on the wrestling side, I had always heard great things and had a lot of respect for your work. I've watched videos, stuff like that. But what I really, really enjoyed was the fresh energy, the positivity, and the leadership that you brought to the locker room, kind of right off the bat. After the first few weeks, I could tell right away this is going to be a good thing for MPW. And ever since then, MPW has grown tremendously and changed dramatically. And you've been a huge part of that. So, thanks for bringing that positivity and that great energy to MPW.
I know, but everybody that knows me very closely knows how negative and cynical I can be too. but no, when I first I've heard of MPW back when Cincinnati Red was booking it, and I knew Cincinnati Red for a long time. He gave me a lot of my big breaks early on in my career back when I first started. So I was always aware, and I was always like right at fingertips away back when Cincinnati Red was in charge of the book. When I mean in charge of the book, I mean like he was in charge. For people that don't know, he was in charge of like getting the talent, making the matches, formulating the storyline. So when he had the book, he had a lot of talent, a lot of good friends that I knew worked there. When MPW moved to Moore Park, it became more student oriented. A lot of younger brand new talent was popping up there, and kind of like up in its own little bubble over there in Moore Park. At the time, I was just bouncing around between training facilities. I was no longer at Santino's, and I was at UEW for a little bit. But I had my open school that was open for anybody, and I think I was just looking for like a fresh start. I think I had like a really down, negative point in my career that I was looking to freshen things up, and the only thing that I can really control uh, is myself and how I perceive and how I react and how I carry on from that point forward. So I would keep my ear close to the ground and watch everything going on in Southern California, whether it was down in San Diego, down in Tijuana, up all the way up into the Bakersfield area, and just kind of see what kind of shows were going on and see where I can make my mark, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. And I noticed how MPW had a lot of green, talent, a lot of newer rookie talent that looked very athletic, looked very raw. Had talent. Looked like they were very athletic, had talent, but they were very raw.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they had like ex WWE guys that were there, just probably there for tune-ups for a lot of the time, for keeping themselves in ring shape. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, that's a perfect place for me because I'm the perfect middleman. That I can be the guy that helps build the young talent, and I'm the guy that can help tune up the more experienced guys. So I'm like, that's the place where I need to be. And the person I contacted was Danny Munchichi Ramirez because he was the person I knew that was working there. Um, and because I knew of Logan X, but we weren't. we were like maybe hardly acquaintances. We were just like, passerbys and names that we knew, people that you face that you knew. But we weren't really like, had a close relationship. So it wasn't somebody like, hey, hit up. And so I went through Danny Munchichi Ramirez, and I told him, hey man, like they need me there. They need someone like me to be that middle guy that can help these guys out. Because by then I had already been eight years in, and and that's about time like I really started to figure out how to like work as a wrestler. Like just like you could be someone 5 years in and have all kinds of experience, but like I think like after 8 years, and there was just something, and it must have been like when I went to the Ring of Honor seminar tryout and like all working around all these geniuses of wrestling that like clicked. Like, oh man, this makes sense. Like, and it's hard to explain. Like whenever you tell like, oh, how it makes sense, but when it happens and the light bulb goes on your head, and like, oh, that's how wrestling works. So that's what that's what they mean when they say less is more, or that's what it means when it means like make everything count. Like it sounds like cliches, like when you hear those type of advice given to you, but when it actually clicks in your head, like, oh, that's what they mean. And then you like start seeing things like Neo in the Matrix, where everything's just code.
Well, and it's and even outside of professional wrestling, these aha moments, these light bulb moments happen in martial arts, happen in business, happen in your own personal growth and development, right? So
right.
you're in this phase of like it's all starting to click, everything's starting to come together. So you start putting it together and you start coming out to MPW. Before we kind of go down that road a little bit more, let me take
Sure.
like, I don't know, 30 years back. I'm not sure. I don't know how old you are, but I know you're older than 30. Can we talk about your childhood just a little bit and like how were you a pro wrestling fan growing up? What kind of activities and sports did you play?
Well, I was pretty small, undersized, meek child. Growing up, but I loved roughhousing with my uncles because they liked wrestling. So I was always roughhousing with my uncles, roughhousing with my younger cousins. But I was always getting beat up for the most part. I was always one of those kids that like I would get beat up, but then I would keep like egging the person on. Like, I'd be crying, and then I'd be like, I don't care, I'm still playing. Um, but yeah, my uncles were into wrestling, so like you kind of always had little wrestling action figures, those old Hasbro, where they were stuck in the rubber pose. Were those Hasbro? I don't remember, but yeah, but yeah, I never really and then like I fell off of wrestling, but in between, right before the Attitude Era. But I liked video games, right? So I liked playing wrestling video games, and so I like WrestleMania the arcade game, and then like In Your House and that stuff like that. So that's how I knew of wrestlers, because I played them on the video games. I knew like Razor Ramon and Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart from the video game. And then once I went to middle school, that's when like wrestling was like popular. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin, all this junk, so all my friends would talk about it. So then you finally like, oh, let me see what everybody's talking about. And you're like, oh, I know these guys play for my video game. And then from then on, it just became hooked because, and I attribute it all to because the fact that I was a bit of a bookworm, believe it or not, in middle school and in elementary school. So I liked Greek mythology. Right? I was really into Greek mythology. So I liked like Hercules and Perseus, Theseus, the Jason and the Argonauts and all the Greek gods. And I loved all that stuff. So I like that. So when you start like looking at wrestling from that type of lens, like how it kind of captures your imagination, the legend of Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant, and the epic match of Andre, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Randy Savage, and the 60-minute Iron Man match, and like there's this lore about it, right? The Undertaker. And
one of my favorite movies, by the way, you brought up Greek mythology. If you're a Greek mythology guy, one of my favorite movies growing up was Clash of the Titans.
Yeah,
I would watch that movie, like, and then I'd go outside and I'd try to like find a helmet and a shield and a sword, and like we'd play that whole thing up. It's kind of funny how those kind of movies and that kind of genre like brings you into professional wrestling, because it's all a big story, and there's like this history, and so that's really fun about
comic books. It's like comic books, superheroes, all that kind of stuff. Kind of you could find it in wrestling. That's the great thing about it. It's like you can make it as real and raw and gritty, like a blood sport type of promotion. Or you make it all goofy and comical, like pro wrestling. And there's a bit of everything for everyone out there. And right now there's such an amazing time for wrestling because there is so much different content that you can just gobble up, as a fan.
Hmm. Yeah. Where'd you grow up? Where are you originally from?
I grew up in the Antelope Valley,
Okay.
and so the city of Lancaster. So it's up there in the desert. There's not a whole lot. The thing when we got a Tommy's chili burger was a really big thing, real big deal. So that goes to tell you how little out there it was. But I used to backyard wrestle with my friends out there, and we'd always dream of becoming professional wrestlers. And I was always the one that I was like, again, I'm the little one, so I'd always be like the one taking the bigger moves. And even then, I would watch wrestling in a different. I would watch it differently because I would tape Raw on Monday on a tape on a VHS, and I'd watch the episode over and over and over again every day up until the following Monday, and I tape over that tape with the following, that Monday Raw, and then do repeat, repeat, repeat. So I would watch wrestling the same episode over and over and over and over again all week long. That's before like SmackDown, and so I would you would just notice, you would see the tells, you would catch the tells. It's like being like a card player, a poker player. You would catch someone's tells,
Hmm.
and like, the referee's about to take a bump, or look, because you see the referee get into position, so he's about to get knocked out, and you're like, oh man, you're really, and I'm already reacting before it happens, and then my friends are like, what's happening? I'm like, the referee's about to get knocked, and then the referee get knocked out, and then my friends would get upset with me because I would be like giving it away
Right. Right.
because
Right.
the way I just watched it. So and I would always go out when I would backyard wrestle. I would always, which was dangerous. Don't do it, kids. But try it at home. I would always do stuff to pop my friends out because I knew how to like do certain things better. I know how to like play on the fact that they were still like fans and didn't see it the way that I see it. And so they'd always be like, "Oh, well, if anyone's become a wrestler, you'd be the one to become a wrestler." And lo and behold, it's what I did. And I like it's like a weird feather in the cap because there's people out there that dream of being doctors, dream of being lawyers and stuff like that, and they probably never get a chance to do it because life gets in the way. I managed to find a way to I dream to be a wrestler, but I still managed to find a way to become one. And so I was like, oh, cool. I not only did all my friends like in high school go like, wow, like you actually became what you've always wanted to be.
Right.
Um, and then but also like still have my regular life to go along with it.
Yeah.
And nothing really encapsulates like having that particular balance of life in wrestling than where I am right now.
Yeah.
Being here in Knott's Berry Farm with so spending time with my family on the day off, and it's like, let me take care of this because that's how busy my life is. And I'm lucky that my wife is very supportive. She's like a true partner because she does understand like how much I care for and love wrestling and how much work I put into it, and she helps me out with with the kids and like understands when like, hey, I need to step away to do this. I need to take off for the weekend and go there. And she'll like go handle what you got to do, go live your dream. So not a lot of people, not a lot of guys out there and girls too are lucky enough to have a partner that supports them that much, and I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you firsthand, it takes a special woman to understand, like, I wanted to be a martial arts instructor. I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
a professional wrestler. I'm always wanting to do these things. And she's just like, well, I'm with you. So let's go do it, and make it happen.
Right,
And you're right. That is rare because, things like martial arts or professional wrestling take, a lot of time, just first of all, training, but also to keep up your knowledge, and
right.
then in your case, giving back as a coach. So before we talk about you being a coach, let's talk about, how did you get into training as a professional wrestler?
Well, I just searched a lot of websites when and this was like in the early 2000s, right? So there was only like maybe three wrestling schools in Southern California at the time, and like two of them were no longer in business. So it was always like Slammers, which was in Studio City, and then there was Empire Wrestling Federation School of Hard Knocks in San Bernardino. And I knew of EWF because they did a couple shows in the Antelope Valley. That's where like I saw my very first indie shows were there when they came up there. So I remember I would just keep searching, and I think I didn't. I would just like Google search, I'm sorry, a Yahoo search. That's how long ago that was.
Right.
When Yahoo was a top search engine. Um, and then I came across Santino Bros Wrestling, and then I Googled how far it was, and it was like a weird point in my life where like I just got out of a relationship. I just broke up with a girlfriend, and she started dating like another friend of mine. So it was like I was like, I needed something to take my time off, take my mind off of things, and that's when
Right.
I found Santino Bros, and I called them, and they didn't answer, and I thought, okay, cool, that's it, I tried, And then I picked up the phone and called again, like immediately after. I'm like, no, I got to try again. And I called, and I would no, and like normally if you knew me, I wouldn't have done that. I would have called once, I would have tried, I'm like, that's it, I'm done. But I called again, and they still didn't pick up. So then I hung up and I continued working, and then they called me back. Like, did someone call here? And I was like, yeah, I was trying to call a wrestling school. I was like, yes. After that awkward exchange for that first 30 seconds, I was talking to Sylvia Jezebel, and she told me about the school and coming in for orientation. This was Friday, right? So I called on a Friday, and she's like, hey, we have class tomorrow morning. Come up and get an orientation to see how you like it. And I'm like, all right. Like right now, I just kept falling, just kept riding the snowball down the hill. Like if I hesitate or like put it off for just a moment, I won't do it.
Right.
So I called up a friend. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go just check out this wrestling school. You want to come with me? He's like, sure. So we got up early in the morning, and that's like about a 2-hour drive from Lancaster to Norwalk, and we got there like at 9 in the morning, and we just watched. It was in Rico Dynamite's backyard, and he had a ring in his backyard, and that's where the school was running. And they're like, they remember telling me, hey, we train in the backyard, but we're not backyard wrestlers. And I'm like thinking, like, I get dropped on my head in my backyard with my friends. So I'm not, as long as I have a ring, I think I'll be more than happy. So they take me back. I meet Joey Chaos, and I'm like, and then a light bulb went over my head. I didn't know him from XPW, but I knew him from WSX, right? And he was like one of my favorite wrestlers in WSX that was on MTV. And I was like, oh shoot, wow, he runs the school. I know this guy. And I was telling my friend, like, do you know what that is? And he's like, no, I don't know what that is. I'm like, never, get out of here. So I watched them train. They did a couple practice matches for us, and I remember just like kind of touching the ring and like, oh my gosh, I've never been this close to a ring. I'm crazy to touch a ring, and I just like fell in love. I'm like I signed up that day, and I started training the following Saturday, and then from that point on, I've been training every single week since then. And I would train 3 times a week, and I'm making that drive from Lancaster to Norwalk 3 times a week. So actually on Saturday nights I would go to my grandma's house and spend the night at her house. So she lived right there in the San Gabriel Valley. So it was Saturday, go sleep, go back to training Sunday, go do work, train on Wednesday nights, and then and I had to have 2 jobs to kind of cover that. So I'd have to work my regular job for LA County. And then I had to do a night job as a karaoke host to kind of pay for that, which really paid for the training. So that's what kind of helped me be a better performer, because you have to be all lively and a host to you sing a few songs to get the fans, the crowd up to then, because something doing being a karaoke host is, you don't realize how hard it is to like control the mood, because people will come up and like sing a really sad song that they like singing, but it just like brings the mood down. So like you have to like assess who's what the next couple songs are. I'm like, oh, I need to get in there and sing "Let's Get It Started" in here or something just to bring the mood up. So that helps. That helped me later on in wrestling to kind of read a crowd when you're like have to like, oh man, this crowd's really dead. Let's do something to perk them up a little bit, or the opposite, like this crowd's too wild. We need to calm them down. Right. That's what the karaoke job helps with that.
Well, funny that you're right in front of a roller coaster, and we always talk about performances being that highs and lows of a roller coaster. It's the same thing. So
Right.
so you started training, and you're training 3 days a week. A lot of people just don't realize how much training goes into becoming a professional wrestler. I mean, it's not just a matter of getting in there and being athletic. It's about learning the craft. So talk about some of your experiences, and Caleb's saying hello, Brent and my friend Kevin, they're all saying hi watching today. Talk a little bit about your memories of your early training. What were some of the things that were memorable to you? Because everybody that trains has kind of a different perception of what it is. I mean, I personally loved when I first started training. I loved the physicality. I loved the contact because of my background. Some people come into professional wrestling and don't realize how truly
rough,
physical it is. And you're like, So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Let's see. Like, when we also, like I said, all of us and then early classes of Santino Bros were all pretty small in stature. 5'10", I think, was our tallest, and none of us really broke like 200 pounds. Like Pinky was probably our tallest, biggest guy. Pinky Santino was our tallest, biggest guy. But besides that, everybody else was my height or relatively taller, or maybe a little bit shorter. We're all pretty little. So like the first couple of weeks, we're just sitting there on the wrestling mat grappling. Like I have no real athletic background. I didn't do any sports. I think the only thing I did physically was I did a ROTC because I was planning to go to the military.
Hmm.
So I was got beefing up ROTC. And so like so I did have some sort of like so I wasn't like a super athletic, but I was pretty fit. But I didn't like, so we're doing grappling, we're doing wrestling, like actual amateur wrestling and grappling is, and a little bit of jujitsu, stuff like that. Cause we had to learn how to, I guess it kind of weeds out who the real tough ones are, right? Because Santino's at the time didn't have a lot of overhead. They're in the backyard. Everybody that pays is just money. It's all profit because it's all running out of Rico Dynamite's backyard. So it's not paying for overhead of like having to pay for rent and electricity and so on and so forth. I'm sure they were kicked a little bit of money for using the space, but if people drop out, it's not a big ding in your pocket. It's just
Right.
it's just you're weeding out the best talent, weeding out to get the best talent. Cream rises to the top. Um, but some of my favorite things that would happen would be that like you get these guys that were athletes that were football players or former military, and they would come in and they're alphas, right? They come in and they're just and then they'd get broke down by wrestling training, because it's like being in the ring and running ropes, grappling, and we would train to exhaustion, and we would train to like my first couple of sessions. I'm throwing up. I'm throwing up 2 or 3 times because of how hard we're working. But you just push forward, and I don't know where that fighter or killer instinct came because I didn't really have it in high school and so on and so forth. But like I just wouldn't let myself quit, because I knew this is something I really wanted. So I would fight through, and I would try, you know what I mean. And I signed up with my friend that came with me, but he ended up dropping out. And through those first couple months, like I'm training consistently, I'm getting beat up, but I'm like liking it because it's like cool, like, and I'm earning respect because they're, of course, like Supreme and Mongol and BC Killer and Chaos, they're like beating me up because I could bump well. Because that's what I knew how to do when I was backyard wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
could bump well, so they would bump me, and they liked bumping me, and they liked the way I sell, so they kept working me, and then they're, so I'm slowly earning respect because like, wow, he keeps getting back up, Ray keeps getting back up, but then you see all these big buff guys, big buff military guys, or big buff football guys come in, and they can't cut it. You see a lot of guys that like, oh, I want to do this, and then they're not in any athletic shape. They have no athletic ability whatsoever, and then they get cut. See, there had to be hundreds, if not thousands, of washouts since when I started there up until like I left, because it's just so tough. It's trying to, people don't realize it's more than just Hulk Hogan's and so on and so forth. But those things we had called beatdown days, and we just beat up people. Take heat and see how much you could take. I don't know how. Looking back on it, you don't know how much of that was right or ethical, but it really was to really find out who the strongest ones were, and because they're the ones that would have stronger will, that would make it in wrestling. Breaking down ring crew, hanging out with the guys after, and everybody just kind of, you build that brotherhood, and unfortunately, I think out of everyone that started, I mean, Pinky had his health issues, couldn't continue. Famous B, I think got settled in as like a manager and a commentator, but like besides like Gino Rivera and Mariah Moreno, none of the maybe and Thunder Kitty, she's out there in the Midwest, but not really many people from the beginner Santino class is out there doing their thing, and at least not as consistently as I am,
Mm-hmm. Right.
But since then, there's been like so many more new Santinos that popped out, and they're doing great things. But I always say that I was I laid the groundwork for them because nobody was really booking Santinos at the time. We had a bad reputation of being stiff and rough and being trained by the XPW guys, so we just knew how to do deathmatch and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the first guys that got outside bookings, and slowly and slow and steady, more of the school, more of the talent, the guys were getting bookings, and the people were finding out like, wow, Santino's is really good. So we had a good foundation. Nobody realizes like the footwork and the rolls, like that is so important. You know what I mean? Like when I start training people, and we go through the rolls, all the tumbles, the back forward roll, back rolls, quarter rolls, and so on, and those kind of things. People get bored of stuff. Right? Like, wait, this is a wrestling training. What is this? So I always have to like put a forward in like, hey, like we're gonna be doing this for a little bit. It's not gonna make a whole lot of sense right now, but it will later on. And you know,
Yeah. Well,
so,
it's all in the details. You know, again, just like anything else, whether you're training at the gym, you're doing martial arts, you're learning business, you know, the fundamentals and the basics and that foundation. Without a strong foundation, you know, you're just really not going anywhere. I mean, everybody wants to learn the cool stuff. Everybody wants to
yeah,
learn all the high spots, but they don't really want to take the time to learn how to run the ropes properly. Take a proper bump. You know, I mean, the
yeah.
things that you're going to be doing in every single experience.
Yeah,
So,
in the
you know,
air, and I'm sorry, I need to cut you off, but
yep.
in this particular like not era of training or like what I've noticed a lot in the people up until when I started training is that we just want to get good enough so we can get by to the next thing. You know what I mean? We're never really mastering the roles or mastering a punch or mastering. We just want to get good enough, and then so we can move on to the next move because sometimes classes are so big or training is so short. But me, I said I was training 3 times a week, so I could at the time I could take time to just spend a whole class doing roles because I know the next class I could do something different.
Hmm.
But I remember spending 2 weeks just practicing lockups and headlocks, lockup, headlock, break, and then you just circle around and you do that for an hour. And so it's that repetition. Those repetitions, all those reps. I don't think those guys are getting that. You get shown how to do it, and then all right, so let me see you do it. That's good enough. Let's move on.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how training goes. And you
Yeah.
see it. And that's when you notice like, oh, this guy could do a really good 360 flip, but man, when he runs the ropes or him throwing a clothesline, it looks like dog shit. I'm sorry, dog crap.
Yeah, no, you know, it's funny. So I had the pleasure of talking with Joey just a couple weeks ago. I've had Steve on the show. I've had Danny, of course, you know, and you know, one of the things that keeps coming up is just students in general taking for granted the fact that I mean, listen at MPW right now there are several opportunities to train every single week, and people like yourself, you know, you were training 3 times a week. Before that, Joey was talking about how when he first started out, like the opportunity to train just wasn't always there. I mean, you'd show up to a
Yeah,
show, you get a little warm up, you get a little training. Any chance you could get in the ring was just a little bit more, but all these students now, you know, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I see because I follow the group still, and I see. I mean, man, some of the coaches are begging these people to train, and it's like, how bad do you want it? If you want it bad enough,
right.
you got to get in there and do it, and you can't do it just good enough because good enough is not going to cut it. You know, on the shows for sure, especially when there's people that really, really want it bad, and you could see it. I mean, you look at guys like Busio. I remember when Busio first started. I mean, you know, that dude really puts out a lot of effort, puts in his
Mm.
training, and it shows in his work, right? You could see who trains and you can see who doesn't,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, Kristen's another example. Trains all
Uh,
the time, all the time.
she's the hardest working girl I know. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? She works so hard. She trains so much. She's always constantly in her head about trying to get better. She's never settling on good enough. Even I go, hey, that's fine. She says, no, no,
right.
I want it. She'll continue. But it's two sides of that coin, right? Um, like I remember like always wanting to be in the ring is whenever and how much they can. That's why I was there 3 times a week because that's what I dreamed of. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be in the ring. And
Right.
so getting there to train. Um, but yeah, but for me, I try not to. I try not to beg people to come to class, and I know sometimes it does get to that. Um, but I try to make it so that people want to come to my class. I
Hmm.
try to do things that's like we've been spending the last at time of recording. We've been spending the last month and a half, or about 3 weeks, almost a month, working on basing, like basing for head scissors and basing for tilt-a-whirl stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, oh, this is really fun. So more people have been showing up because of how fun that is. So you try to come up with curriculum, and it's also like assessing the talent you're working with, right? I have this weird mix of talent because I'll have someone like Phil come in, and then I have Heidi and and then I'll have Diego come in, and then I have Frank come in, but then I'll have like fresh students like this guy Joe and Jack Slammer and like these guys that are like brand new, like a couple months in, and then you have like guys that come in very rarely like a brand new, hey, I'm just starting today, and I showed up here to your class. He was like, okay, cool. So you have to like find a curriculum that's going to like give them all a workout and help them all learn something, even though they're all across the board when it comes to talent. So that's when
Right.
it's like, because you could either be like, no, I'm sorry, man, I'm only training the advanced people today, or hey, sorry guys, I'm only going to be working these new guys. So, so like it cuts your class in half, it cuts the workout in half, and now you're not focusing on so many people. And that's such a hard juggle to do, but I
Totally.
think I do a pretty good job of handling the talent across the board. But
Yeah.
it's just like thinking of like, okay, what drill can I do that everybody can do, and give everybody a challenge and everybody a workout, and then what there might be slight modifications I might have to do for the advanced people, or my slight modifications I have to do for the people that are less experienced.
Right. Well, and earlier, I don't know if you saw me pop this comment up there, but Brent Abillo, one of our students that took the beginner course way back, but he said he loves seeing how you tailor individually to each one of the students, and that's a tough job as a coach when you do have like a first day beginner student, and you've got someone like Danny who's been there. And can do everything, just needs some
Yeah,
fine tuning. It's a huge range, but I think the one thing as a coach that I try to remember, and you mentioned this briefly, is that you want to give the students what they want so that they keep coming back, but then while they're there you got to give them what they need so that they
yeah,
see, so that they have this hunger to go, oh, okay, that's what I need to
yeah.
work on, so it's
You
just
you
this hamster wheel of
you
give them
have to
what they
give them
want,
a
give them what they need, give them what they
you have
want,
to
give
and
them
you
what they
have to
need.
and you have to show them that they're progressing, because they may not even realize that they're progressing. And when
Yeah.
you make them realize that they're progressing or show them they're progressing, then they're like, oh crap. I, and then they like want to come, then they get that like, it's like when you're at the gym and you find like, oh crap, I got a muscle there.
Right.
It
Right.
makes you want to keep going.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to do. Like, hey, like we'll show me this, and then we fine tune it and we work it. Like, hey, look, you're doing it way better than the beginning. And they're like, oh
Sure.
shoot, like I did it. And and one of the things I always say, like, yeah, I'll demonstrate a drill or demonstrate a maneuver, a roll or something, and I go, don't you can watch me do it, guys, but what I need you to watch is I'll have to pinpoint, like, watch my feet when I do this, and watch my hips as I plant, but also watch each other, like, because a lot of times they'll do the drill, they'll walk out and they'll be like looking at the ground or looking to try to catch their breath. But you guys learn just as much by watching each other do the drill, because you look at the tricks that Danny's using to do a drill. You look at the tricks that Phil is using to get through the drill, and you see how someone Frankie Frank's size and length runs through the drill, and you see how someone that Diego Valen's size and length run through the drill. So you get to see these different sheets. So it's like, obviously Kristen is not going to do the drill the way that Danny would do the drill, but maybe she might take something off of Phil to get through it, or she's not going to do it the way that I do it. But I'll even sometimes I learn something from watching the students. Like, well, wait, show me that again. Show me how you did that again. And then I'm like, oh, that's okay. And I'll go, class, look at, did you see that? And then I was like, do that again for us. Just demonstrate. And that's how it works. Like, it's not, I don't know everything.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not the end all be all. And that's why you always, again, you have to keep up with what's going on in the scene. You have to kind of keep up with all the trends that are happening in wrestling. But then you have to like look at all how what and it's like, sorry, I'm just like all over the place.
You got lots of thoughts.
I have my energy drink too. But like everybody gets trained at different places and they bring it over, and I'll go, hey, like they'll be, hey, I was taught this way to do that. I'm like, okay, show me then, show me how you do it. And then I'm like, okay, that's actually really good. Let's everybody try it his way. And that's how we learn and expand. Because if you like lock yourself in to be like, I only learned how to do it this way, I only do it this one way, or and it's like, well, I respect that, but we'll try it my way and see how you feel. If you like it better, hey, that might work. Because it's like, again, if you do your quarter rolls this way, and hey, that's the way you do it. I rather have you do something good and clean than have you locked in how I do.
Right, right, right. Well, and people that are watching this or that will watch this later are going, gosh, I'm hearing a lot about professional wrestling. But if you're listening really closely to what Ray's saying right now, is the fact that an instructor or coach can learn just as much from the student as the student learns from the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Students can learn from each other. And if we're really keeping our eyes open and we're being flexible, there's more ways to get something done than just the one way, right? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
being flexible is key. I know that having taught martial arts for 25 plus years now. You can't teach a 55-year-old the same way you teach a 5-year-old. There's different ways to teach, but you're going to learn from each one of them that may play off to the next person. And you brought up something interesting too about professional wrestling. I know from my background, when you talk about progression, you want to help them see the progression, right? I always thought it would be the coolest thing to have some kind of rank promotion system within, because
Right.
like in martial arts we do belts, right? Like that's so clear
Yeah.
and easy. You start at white belt, you work towards a black belt and beyond. In wrestling it was always kind of like, okay, well, where do I fit? Like what belt am I? Like what
Yeah.
level? It's
It's
so
hard.
hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard to do that because, again, this person may this person may get it. They may understand how the psychology works. They may know how to call a match, but like they can't run the ropes. They can't perform. And then it's the same thing. You're like, this person, man, this person can do all the drills real fast, but then if you try to go like, hey, let's just play around in the rings to hold pull, and they can't do it. So you may have somebody that's been training for a year and they're not ready to wrestle yet. But then you have someone that's been training, like myself. I was training for 4 months and I had my first match, and it's just a matter of like, and it's not a new term, but it's just a term I've been using a lot lately. Is wrestling IQ, right? Having the wherewithal and the awareness of what you're doing in the ring while you're performing, right? Because there's people that just kind of like have no wrestling IQ and just kind of run through motions, and they do something that they don't even know why they're doing it. They're just kind of like, oh, we're running through the international spot, right? Tackle, drop down, leapfrog, this and that, hip toss, right? And they run through the motions, but they don't realize that the wrestling IQ needed to fully understand that whole sequence. And that's just a small
Hmm.
example, but like learning how to be aware of the crowd, to work the crowd, to shush the crowd, to be aware of like what you're doing in the ring, and how you're working this, what story you're telling, as opposed to like, I just want to do this move, like I want to
Right,
do a cool move, where
right,
it's not having good wrestling IQ. It's like, hey man, the crowd is really biting into this, so then the crowd is really, we were punching each other back and forth. The crowd was really into it, and they wanted us to keep fighting. So that's why I wanted us to go a little bit longer. And
right,
so as opposed to like, hey, we're going to hit each other twice and we're going to move into the next spot. But hey, the fans are really into it. Let's just keep punching each other for a little bit longer. And that's utilizing wrestling IQ. And there's guys that have it, and there's guys that don't. And sometimes that's the biggest thing of preventing a person from being in the ring and not. Because
right,
again, you can have high wrestling IQ and only be a person that's been wrestling 3 or 4 months, and you get in the ring, you're like, cool, at least I can be carried. At least
sure,
I know how to follow.
right,
If I'm in the ring and someone's giving me directions, I can follow, and that's somebody that can be in the ring. But then if you have someone that's been training for a year, and like I'm trying to call stuff to them and they're not following what's going on, then it's like, oh man, you shouldn't be in the ring. So
right,
yeah, I wish there was some sort of like definite like ranking system for wrestling, but there isn't, because there's no set course. There's no set
right,
like, okay, cool, we have to learn this, because week to week, depending on who's in the class, you're learning different things.
right,
And I remember I helped Joey Chaos develop a lesson plan of like having certain things set. Like you need a goal. We need to
right.
have this sequence or these particular maneuvers learned at this point. But I don't think you really can. You can't be like, this is a 6-month program and it goes for 6 months. And then if you have to have everything known by the end of that 6 months, because sometimes people take longer.
Right.
They just don't, because they don't have the IQ to get it. Not to
Right.
say
Right.
that
Right.
they're dumb. They just have the wrestling performer IQ.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up at this stage, and I'm kind of like thinking through. I remember you and I had a match, probably I think the only match that you and I have ever been in the ring together, and I remember being super nervous. I'm like, dude, because I've always thought like I'm just a karate guy. I have some good charisma. I have physical, but like the wrestling IQ was never my thing. Like I would talk with Danny, and I'm like, dude, I can't follow you, but I'll tell you what. If you just tell me what to do, I can
Uh-huh.
get through this. And so I said to you, I'm like, well, what are we doing? Just follow me, and you'll be fine. And it was fine. It was totally fine, because that was the one thing that I could do, was I could follow almost anybody. But if you put me to run a match, no way. Like
Yeah.
I never had that part. I just never got that far. I would say that was probably like a green belt, maybe in wrestling, midway.
Yeah.
Um,
It,
Go ahead.
no, that happens. It's just kind of how it goes. Like it'll take a long time, and when that light bulb hits, it happens because
Hmm.
I didn't always have that confidence to be like, don't worry, I got you.
Right.
That came with experience and time. But it's just like one of those things. Like also, it's like you fake it till you make it, right? I was like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And I tell the guys this a lot now. Like I'm never nervous when I wrestle now. Whenever I'm sitting behind the curtain, I'm just kind of like, here we go, time to clock in and go to work. I'm just joking with them, right? Because I'm prepared. I'm always prepared. I've been training for 10 plus years, and there's nothing in that ring, beside like a tornado hitting the building. But there's nothing that can happen in that ring that I won't be able to handle or fix. I've been in a ring where the top rope broke off in the middle of our match, and we kept going and we finished. The referees all came out to try to fix it, and we just said, "Get out of here, go away. We're going to finish this match," and we did. And it's just so. I just have the confidence knowing like I'm a trained professional wrestler. That's professional is the word, right? There's nothing in that ring that can happen. So I'm confident in anything that happens in that ring. I can be like if shit goes. I'm sorry. If crap really hits the fan, then we'll end it. We'll go home. We'll end the match. Stay down. Don't kick out through 3 count, or I won't kick out because it's like no, I'm not gonna kick out, and we're gonna end this match, and we're gonna dwell on it for about 10 minutes, and then we're gonna worry about the next match. It's like having the football mentality. Oh, we lost. Well, let's study the tape and see what we did wrong, and let's move on to the next game.
Right.
And
I was going to say that, and that should go for pretty much anything. Once again, right?
yeah.
I mean, if you are, I think we all have this little something inside of us when we go out to have a match, or we go out to speak to a group, or we go to teach a class, or whatever we might do. We always have that little something in there because we obviously care about what we're doing. But like you said, you've been there 100 times, right? There's no situation that you're going to go, oh yeah, I don't know what to do here. You've been there. Any fighter will tell you, like, they get caught in some kind of submission or whatever. It's like if you've been there enough times, I turn this way, I turn that way, and I get out. But sometimes you just get caught. I mean, sometimes like you said,
your number gets
work
called.
through it. Yeah. Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
I got a question because it's come up in the wrestling community. It comes up kind of as a hot topic sometimes. Is professional wrestling for everyone? What's your thought?
Why wouldn't it be? You know what I mean? Like I said, we were talking earlier. We have Bloodsport, which is all like gritty guys in board shorts, no knee pads type of wrestling, and then we have Wrestling Pro Wrestling, where we have a giant Pop Tart wrestling, the Hamburglar or something, and then we have I think it's for everybody to enjoy. Like if people, it is a hot button topic, right?
Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because you've seen some people that are like, man, there are just certain people that should never, ever set foot in the ring. They should just never try it, never give it a shot. You know what I mean? And so my thought is
gatekeeping mentality, right? It's like a gatekeeping mentality.
I think that everybody has a place, right? And everybody has their own unique talents. I mean, I can see so many people that have gotten in the ring, and hey, maybe they're not going to be a wrestler. Maybe they're going to be a referee. Maybe they're going to be a manager. Maybe they're going to be an announcer. There's something they could do within that realm of professional wrestling. So that's why I kind of asked that question.
Okay, I get that one. Okay, so there's 2 factors that I think kind of goes with it, right? Is first off is if that is the person in question open enough to realize and aware enough to realize, like, hey, wrestling's not for me, right? Like if they want to be a wrestler, train to be a wrestler, and then you get in the ring with them, and then you're like, oh man, guy, you should be. Oh, you watch their performance, you're like, nah, maybe you shouldn't be a wrestler. So, so there's that question. If they're gonna be willing to admit to themselves that it's not for them. So that's the biggest hurdle. If you can get over that, because then they might come up to you hard. Like, hey man, what do I need? What am I missing? And you're like, man, she's like, you want to be honest with the truth? I'm like, maybe this isn't for you, or maybe it's like, you could try to steer the boat as much as you can, but it's up to them to turn it. But then the other thing is now it might be on to me to actually find the right spot for them. It's like, hey, you know what you'd be really good at as a manager, or hey, it's like, I'll make you my on-screen authority figure, or maybe you'll be good in a tag team rather, as opposed to being a singles wrestler. So you have to like as a producer, as a booker, a promoter, you have to like find the like because you have to make them feel that like they're a part, because that's all everybody wants to feel. They want to feel a part of the business. They want to be a part of the club. That's why
Mm-hmm.
when they can't make it in a certain company, they'll take off and then go start their own company. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
where then they don't have anybody tell them anything. And it's just about, I guess, just how you communicate and how you collaborate. You know, how can I make this person feel validated and feel that that they got it. They have some good sense of self worth while helping in this overall product. It's like, hey man, we need some help in the editing side, and we have them do editing, and they may like, oh wow, this is really fun, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe we'll have them do commentary. So it's just fun, like being a. Again, I always go back to football, right? It's like being a coach, right? You get your players, and you try to fit them in the right scheme, and then if you can't, this player is not working out, then you're gonna have to finally cut them, and it's like, oh man, I'm sorry, man, this isn't for you. But again, it's like there's always these promotions that you could find a place in, like
Mm-hmm.
that. Hey, this guy doesn't like doing hokey stuff. Like, well, man, go start doing more MMA based wrestling promotions. Or hey, like he just wants to be a comedian. He wants to do joke stuff. And like, hey, there's a lot of those type of promotions out there too. There is a place for everyone. So as long as I guess it's like one of those things, like as long as I'm taking care of myself and I'm doing my thing, then it shouldn't really matter with what X, Y, and Z is doing, or if they shouldn't. You know what I mean? It's not my place to tell them they can't be in the wrestling business when there might be twice as many people saying that I shouldn't be in the wrestling business. But,
Mm-hmm.
thinking I'm.
Yeah, once again, it's just one of those things where, like, you watch on social media or just comment boards, and you hear, like you said, the gatekeeper
Yeah.
concept of like, we only let in who we want to let in, and everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've come across. I was fortunate enough, when Danny and I started the beginner program at MPW, we just wanted anybody that wanted to have anything to do with wrestling,
Right.
and we had some guys that just, honestly had fun. They kind of lived out that dream of getting in the ring. I mean, I know for myself at 38 years old,
Hmm.
stepped into the ring for the very first time. I mean, like, how many people would have even allowed that for the most part? Because
Right. Yeah.
I
Back
mean,
in back in like, yeah.
I haven't been around. I haven't been around the block. As a matter of fact, haven't been outside of MPW at all. But you hear these horror stories of just people getting, kind of kicked to the curb, and that brings me to the next question, which is, MPW has such a unique culture and such an inclusive culture of kind of giving everybody their place. Logan X Paul has always been really good about kind of just bringing everybody in and giving them their own thing and letting them kind of run with it. What's been your experience? And I'm not looking to like kind of out anybody, but have you experienced the let's just say, for a lack of a better term, the ugly side of professional wrestling?
I'm sure. I know that I have. I'm probably just moved past them, so that's why I don't remember them. But it's usually just like getting looked over on certain spots. Looking like man, I work just as hard. I don't understand, and it's all. And then it comes like being a network thing, like just having networking. But yeah, I've always been so easy to work with. When it comes like talent, promotions, and bookers, and so like, I've never find myself like, oh, like maybe I'm in a bad mood because I'm like sick or hungover from a previous night, or and I had like, what, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I feel like doing this today, so I'll leave. So I always just try to like, it's what we make of it, right? It's as positive as we make it the experience be. So
Hmm.
when I'm negative, I'm just going to be negative for the rest of the day, or but I try to steer the guys. I try to warn them about some potential scams, some potential dangers, and you try to. Then that's, I think, as a job as a trainer coach, is just trying to look out for the students, and like, hey, like, I don't know, I wouldn't work that promotion, or hey, I wouldn't work with that particular wrestler promoter. There's other places you can go.
Hmm.
But we try to, again, like the culture at MPW wasn't always that way either. When I first came in, I just like, I'm just, this is your guys. I'm a guest here. This is your house. I'm just gonna try to put on a good first impression. I'm gonna show that I want to work here. I want to show that I want to help. Um, and so that's what I did. I try to like guide them without like them even knowing about it. Like the first thing I did when I got there was like, hey, is anybody working a particular body part in their matches? And they were like, oh no. And I'm like, okay, thanks. I just want to check, because sometimes the match before me or after me might work the knee, and I'm going to work the knee too. So I just wanted to make sure that nobody's working the knee, or if somebody was, I won't work it. So it's just like
Right.
these weird little tricks that it's like, oh, to help them. Like, oh, they're like, oh, I never thought of that. Or like, hey, what's your finish? I don't want to do the same finish that you're doing. And they're like, oh yeah. So it's like, again, just trying to build a first impression, trying to win, earn everybody's trust, not kind of coming and be like, hey guys, I'm the big vet here, so I need someone. Where's my corner? Where's my chair? Someone tie up my boots, bring my gear bag. It's like, no, you come in and you shake everybody's hand, you try to learn everybody's name, you try to learn everybody's, And I remember that NPW, there was like a big divide. Like it was like Phil and Heidi and like them and like then the millennials and all them, and everybody was like kind of off in these little, but they wouldn't work with each other very often, right? It'd always be like Moon and Cody and Danny working together, and Heidi and Bulletproof and Feel Good working together, and I was making friends with everybody, and it's like we can all be friends, and then we start going to Pizza Man, and so it's like building camaraderie, and once you start building friendships, you build trust, and it makes the wrestling become a little bit easier because it's like, oh, like I'm more friendly with this person, I'm friends with this person now, so now we like, oh, I know what they like, I know what they want to do in the ring, so. When
Now,
one of the big things that we did was just kind of bring more togetherness, bring the locker room closer together.
and what made you do that, or what experience did you have that kind of because that's what I noticed, when you came to MPW. I noticed that you had this all for one for all type attitude. You wanted to earn the respect. You never walked in and demanded it. For a little while you were actually a little bit more on the quiet side, but you started kind of implementing these things. Where did that come from in your life that you had that example that was put there for you? Or was that something that you just always wanted to have?
I think part of me, like any type of a lot of points in my life I've had big group of friends, you know, like and so I would have one friend and I would start accumulating a group, and I'm like, this is a group, guys. Like I would make us a group. So I had in my middle school days I had a group of friends, and we were like a core group, and then in high school you make a new group, and then so in wrestling and after high school, I had like my friends that my 5 friends that hung out every single week, and we were always together, and I held them together because as soon as I moved away, everybody went their separate directions.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of always in me. I don't know if it's because like I never had brothers or like cousins that I hung out with on a regular basis. It's just me and my younger sister, and so it was always kind of like I liked having a big group of friends. But I also think a big factor is because like the biggest group of friends or biggest family atmosphere that I had was Santino's, and I didn't have it anymore. So coming in, and it's like, okay, if my family's going to at the time, kick me out, if my family's going to kick me out, get rid of me, then I'll just make my own family. I'll just go out and I'll take these group of guys and all these kids that they're all kids to me. All these kids here, they want to learn. They said, man, this could be a really good thing if someone just knew how to tap into them and knew how to reach to them. Like, because again, there was like, some guys came in and they just came in and beat up Danny, beat up Brendan or whoever, and got a payday and was all happy about it. And they were, it's like, no, let me help these guys learn, because like I was trying to build my own army to counter the Santino army at the time. So maybe there was a little bit of spite out of it too. But also like I was like I said, I really love football. And I was always really into Coach McVay, the head coach of the LA Rams. We were the exact same age, and so I would always watch a lot of his press conferences or his post game speeches, and it's like those were like really inspiring. How he would just build this culture, keep everybody together, and his mantra was always "we, not me." All right, and at that point in my career, I realized like, okay, I'm not gonna be a big star. I'm a journeyman. That's what I am. That's my role in this business. I'm a journeyman. I'm a guy that's going to tune people up. I'm a mechanic. I tune people up, whether they're young guys and whether they're old vets, right? Whether they're ex-WWE guys, they need someone to tune them up. And that's what I was. I'm a mechanic. I'm a journeyman, and I'm probably not going to make it as a wrestler. But you know what? I feel like maybe I can make it as a coach. Maybe I can make it as a trainer, mix producer. So if I could take these guys here and help them get them to the next level, then it's like, okay, then it's like living vicariously through them, or
Mm.
watching them, succeed. And there was like, and watching them succeed or watching that growth, there was like this feeling of like having me puffing my chest, like, dang, look at them doing how good they're doing, man. Like, dang, I'm so proud of them. I wouldn't tell them to their faces, but I'm proud of all of them. you
They're
gotta,
they're
you gotta,
I'm sure they're watching or will be watching later because I see Danny commenting a couple times, so I know he's one of your one of your guys, that really looks up to you, and really, you took the guys under your wing, and really, I'm sitting back watching, and I'm no longer, as involved as I once was, but like watching from afar, it's so cool to see, the guys getting out and getting on these other shows. I mean,
right. And
again,
that's based on the relationships they built with other talent on other shows with promoters. Um, and that's all they needed. They just needed a push to go out there, because
mhm,
they were, a lot of them were fine just working at MPW their whole time, and they just needed a push to get out there, and to say, like, come on, get, like, just kicking them in the pool, get in there and see how it is. If you don't like it, swim back to the edge. I'll take you out of the water and put you on the bench, but
right,
just go and try it. You know what I mean? Because like, you can hear all kinds of stories. You can hear all kinds of horror stories of the indie circuit and how people get beat up or cheated out of money or stuff. You know what I mean? But you can hear all stuff, but it may not even happen to you. You have to go out there and experience yourself. You have to
right.
go out there and experience it. You can't live scared in your house all the whole time. You have to go out there and pick some flowers or get stub your toe a little bit, and then you'll learn, like, okay, I'm not going to walk over there.
Well, I think
But
I think throughout the last year and a half, you talk about staying at home, and I mean, like with COVID,
yeah,
like you can still
yeah.
get out and do stuff, guys. It's okay. Like you're gonna be all right. Hey, you
Right.
brought up football and coaching. Are you a Ted Lasso fan?
I haven't seen the program. I've heard good things about it though.
Okay, so I think this is right up your alley. You got to check it out.
I'll check it
Just
out.
his coaching style, very unique, very fun, great show. Last couple minutes here, just few questions. What was your, in a few words, what was your debut like for you? What was so memorable about your debut match?
Well, I technically had two different debuts, right? Because I debuted in a battle royal under a mask,
Okay.
right? And the funny thing about that is, like, I was working on the show as like crew, so I had to do ring crew, put up the chairs, and I was working as a camera operator. And then during intermission, I had to change in my wrestling outfit and then go into the ring and um, get beat up and get thrown out, and then go back to the back and change. So I didn't really get a chance to like, oh my gosh, my first match, you know what I mean? So, 'cause, like, I was like, oh shoot, I got to go back out there and film the rest of the show. Um, but I earned a lot of guys' respect just because of doing that, like sweeping and mopping the floor after, because I was just doing work, paying dues. I remember my first like real debut as Ray Rosas. I remember being like really nervous, um, and like thinking like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, like this, like like almost like that was the end of the movie. Like, everything was building up to this particular debut match. This was the end of the movie. Like, I'm gonna do it, and then freeze frame, roll credits. But no, that's just the start. You know what I mean? That's just the
Right.
start of the movie, because then from then on, you're going every week. But no, you'll never forget that moment. You never get to forget that feeling of getting that first match, of being you and getting to perform. I was in the ring with Famous B, Steve Payne, and Gino Rivera, and they all been working just a little bit. Well, Steve worked a long time, but they all worked a little bit longer, so they knew how to do it. They all carried me well. They reassured me again, because it's like, we're Santino Brothers, we're all family, and they all want everyone. We all wanted each other to succeed, so they're all helping me and helping me look good. And I remember like thinking like, man, that's great. You know what I mean? You get that feeling of like, oh my gosh, that's it. I can't believe I did it. I can't believe I did it. And then next week you do it again, and just, as over time, that feeling goes away, and you're like, oh, and then where I am right now, like, oh, punching in for work. And then
Hmm.
now I'm telling the young rookies, because I was working with a lot of the rookie Santinos. Of course, I did my open challenges where I'm working a lot of less experienced talent, and it's just like, grab them by the shoulder, be like, I got you. You know what I mean? Don't worry about it. And it's just like, when you now, I'm just not even. I'm barely making that realization right now. I go from one side to the other, being like, oh my god, I'm so nervous, and then being, come on over here. You just go full circle on it. You have to pay it forward, and it's like, all right, I got you. What do you want to do, kid? I'm gonna make sure you look good. Like, this match ain't about me. They know Ray Rosas. They don't know you, so let's make you look good. You know,
Right.
that's the
Nice. Nice.
mindset I go in now.
What's your favorite match that you've had to date?
to date, man, I had the match with Slice Boogie that I had for the Santino Bros title was one of my favorites. It's probably because of recency bias. Is one that I can remember the most recently. Um, because like the story we told and how clean the match was. Because I was like the big bad guy heel, and we had like a really classic like almost WWE style main event where it's kind of like all over the place, Attitude Era, but like if you go back and watch the match, it was like it's clean, it's crisp. I even make someone like Slice Boogie get babyface reactions, and he's like one of the biggest heels in that particular organization. All my PP Ray matches from bar wrestling can go up as favorites. Anytime Team of Peter is really good. As far as like my favorite like MPW match, it had to be the farewell show, maybe at the last Moore Park show, or the one right before last Moore Park show, where me and Danny just went out there and just called it in the ring for like 30 minutes, and that one holds a special moment, and especially because I ended up blading without telling him, and, so I'm just bleeding, and he's like, "Oh man," but it was pretty emotional, it was pretty exciting, and then it was like able to see to finally see the growth, right? Not the full maturity of Danny Devine, but like from where I started when I first got there to that point, to like we can go out like, hey, we'll have a 30-minute match and call it in the ring and be very emotional and so like to have that, to see that maturity happen, it was like that was very like rewarding for me. Like, oh, I walked out like we had a great match. Of course, we ended up saving the company. But taking that raw talent and then molding it into a capable worker, and you're like, oh, look at what I did. Look what I did. I mean, he did a lot of work himself too, but a lot of that was me. He steals a lot of my drills, steals a lot of my moves, a lot of my match concepts. But now to a point where he's taking care of all the MPW operations. I don't have to be there to book the show or run the show. He does it now, and I could take a step back and more focus on other things. So it was like, oh, cool. I've been waiting for this to drive itself. You know, I think when you build a business or build a promotion or build a company or culture or a team for it to eventually just go into autopilot, and then you just like, cool. I can sit back and enjoy the fruits of my labor and watch my talent explode and watch my talent succeed.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Last question: who's your favorite professional wrestler of all time?
Of all time, I mean, I could say something cliche like Eddie Guerrero or like Chris Jericho, but favorite wrestler of all time would have to be John Cena, man. Like, he's the man. He does. He's big match John. Like, he goes out there and he can wrestle anybody. When he especially had those run with all the indie guys, and he stepped up because everybody's always, oh, 5 moves of doom, but he's like, no, he changed everybody's mind, you know, and he's my favorite of all time, John Cena, because he's like a quintessential babyface. Even when he's getting booed, he still babies it up. He knows how to work a match when he's like facing another babyface. Because babyface matches are really hard, but John Cena always pulled them off, and that's how I always model my babyface matches. Like when I'm good guy versus good guy, I always model them after John Cena. You know how he plans his matches.
Sweet. Cool. Well, I mean, I love John Cena, and I like him even more for what he does outside the ring. I'm not talking about his movies because those
But
aren't very good.
all the wishes
All the
he
Make a
granted.
Wish stuff, you know what I mean? Like, that's like to take something that you're so good at and be able to do good in the world outside of that arena. I think is it really makes
Yeah.
a cool story. Now, I mean, if you've seen some of the shows with him and the Bellas, right? Like, he seemed like total weird dude, and
Yeah.
my cousin actually worked for him and has told me stories about him. But I'm like, I look at him as the guy that, like, not only great wrestler, whatever, but I mean, how many people do as many Make a Wish as he has? I just
Right.
think that's
Yeah.
super cool.
Not many wrestlers can do the schedule he could do. You know,
Yeah,
at doing all those appearances, doing all the TV shows.
Yep.
Make a wishes, and then as soon as like those guys get, as soon as a lot of those wrestlers that want to be main event get a taste of that, they're like, nah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's a rough schedule. Well, hey Ray, I want to let you get back to your family because you're at Knott's Berry Farm, and I want you to enjoy the rest of the day. But thanks for taking an hour of your time to just kind of talk about wrestling and life. And I hope that people that are watching this take away a little bit more than just the professional wrestling, but a lot of great nuggets of information
Yeah,
and wisdom just from a great coach.
but,
Can you do me one favor before we go? And just
sure.
anybody that is aspiring to be a professional wrestler, or let's just say they've been wanting to do something for so long in their life, what would you tell them right now?
I would say do it, man. You got one life to live, so you don't want to live with like don't leave the earth leaving anything on the table. You know, if you have questions, you have doubts, get rid of them. Just do it. Do it makes you happy. Do what you think is going to be happy. If it doesn't work out, then you got the rest of your life to do whatever you want. I think the biggest key for anything is balance. Is finding the balance in life, work and play. Like I said, I'm all over the place. I'm working, I'm wrestling, I'm training, I'm here at Knott's Berry Farm. I try to make sure that as much time as I spend wrestling, I spend just as equal amount of time with my family. Because without them, I wouldn't be doing it. Without my son enjoying wrestling, I wouldn't be doing it. Without my wife giving me support for wrestling, I wouldn't be doing it. But if you have that balance, you'll be fine. And it's tough. It's not going to be easy. But nothing worth having comes easy. Yeah. So
Very true.
you got to go out. You got to take the risk. You got to take the risk and have an experience. Kind of how I look at it.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. And again, thanks for all your time today. Go enjoy the rest of the day at Knott's Berry Farm, and I hope to
I'm
catch
gonna
up
go
with
ride
you again
Montezuma's Revenge right now.
soon. Well, have a good time. We'll talk to you soon, Ray. Take care,
All right.
guys, and everybody. We'll see you next week on Monday for the next Master Motivation. Have a
Take
great day,
care.
everyone.
Bye.